Hello again. For the beginner welder, a few things to think about when you're welding. If your welds aren't turning out the way you want them to, maybe they're not looking really good. You've welded a couple times before and they turned out just fine, and now for some reason they just turn out looking like crap. First thing to check would be your ground. Where's your ground at? Is it really clean metal underneath that ground wire? Wherever you have it attached, make sure it's really clean. Make sure it's on the same piece of metal you're going to weld on. It works a lot better that way. If it's still not working right, check the tip on your welder. Over time, that tip where the wire comes out, this tip right here, over time, this little copper tip wears out as a wire comes through. The wire has to make connection with here to make a good weld. So you want to replace this tip every so often. This one's probably about due. It's looking pretty crusty. Another thing you want to pay attention to when you're welding is that as you weld, the metal heats up. As it heats up, it expands. As it cools down, it contracts. It contracts with a lot of force. With smaller projects like this, it's not a big deal because you can bend it back and tweak it back later after it cools. With something bigger, say you're putting a roll cage in, you need to clamp everything really good and really secure, and maybe tack weld a bunch of stuff in different areas. Jump around a lot. Because if you do a continuous weld, this piece of metal welded here, you weld in this corner, welding right here, this piece of metal is going to want to come this way as it cools. It's going to cause this piece of metal to bow just a little bit right at the weld site. So it's not going to be flat. On this small little thing, put it in a vise, tap it around with a hammer, you're fine. But on a roll cage, you're going to run into problems. Another thing you want to pay attention to when you're welding nuts and bolts. You're going to heat this nut up, say you're going to weld it on there, you're going to heat it up, it's going to expand, and then it's going to contract as it cools. The threads inside, they're going to heat up on one side and then shrink back down. And if this is not a self-locking nut, it's going to turn into one. So what you want to do, say you want to thread that bolt through, put the nut on the bolt, take some tape, wrap around the threads to protect the threads on the bolt. That way any slag coming from your welder doesn't land on the threads and booger them up. Now, if you weld that nut onto that plate, the threads on the inside are going to keep them the right shape. You can weld it on, let it cool, take the bolt out, and your nut's going to be just fine. Hope this explains a couple things, makes life a little easier for some of you. I'll post a couple more little tips and tricks as I think of them and as they happen to me. A lot of experience in welding, you learn a lot of things, and I feel like sharing them with people trying to get into it, not knowing what's going wrong. So, hope this does you some good. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll come back with some more videos as I get them. Thanks for watching.